I'm sure we can cut all of these together into a perfect one.
So we've had our bus for about 2 months now. We've done about 3 weeks worth of work, which is what you see in this video. We thought that stripping the bus was going to be super easy, and for the most part it was, but taking the seats out was super challenging.
So when we got the bus home, we excitedly took the first back seat out, and that came out fairly easily, 4 bolts per seat, just using a socket. But then we went and got ourselves an impact driver just to make that job a lot easier. And then we realized that the bolts have been moved from their original locations and nuts aren't held underneath.
So I had to get in the bus with Lindsay underneath the bus so that one of us could hold the bolt and the other one manage the nut. But a lot of the bolts are really rusty and stripped in the top of the bus. Some of the nuts underneath literally couldn't be accessed.
Not to mention the grease and dust like raining down on you when you're trying to hold it.
Yeah, I'm not mad about being inside the bus.
Another trip to Bunnings to get an angle grinder. So we grind down the head of some of the bolts so they would fall out from underneath.
It was super time consuming because it was so much solid metal to grind through. I'm not sure if we even know where all of those bolts went. Whatever modification your bus has means that it's going to be a different process to take things out. So like us, you just have to figure it out when the time comes.
Okay, good. Yeah, keep going. Really difficult to like.
So another reason that these seats were super challenging to take out was because we had to switch between our tools and the sizes of the tools we were using so much. The bolts were a variety of imperial and metric, so there's a picture of the tools that we used just for taking the seats out. Luckily the bolts along the side were much easier, I think because they weren't so caked with grime, they weren't rusty, and they were super easy to access, as well as being one size the whole way up. So that was something we were really grateful for. Once the seats are out, we just started hunting for screws that we could rip out, little plastic sockets we could pop off, or any joint that we could get our hands into. We weren't able to use any of what you can see in this video in our own build, so we're not too worried about damaging anything. Everything came out pretty easily. The only thing that was kind of challenging was those really long strips of plastic along the walls, and the air conditioning ducts are kind of heavy. They're more solid than you might expect, so you probably want 2 people for that. But otherwise, this part was probably the most fun I had while we were ripping out the bus. So along here, you have to unscrew all of these and then manually flick them off because they're a little too firm to just rip the plastic off. Okay.
Oh, someone's left a flaming screw in there.
Okay, well Lindsay's doing it like a pro, so it just took me a little longer.
There's a technique after you've done 100 of them. And then behind here is absolutely nothing.
Just plastic.
This is plastic lining.
Very budget ducted air conditioning. So this is how the front of the cab looks with everything ripped out. And so we're going to put some storage up there, hopefully.
So now we're trying to remove these like various tracks and stuff, which I think we hear from the wheelchair days of the bus. There's like many different types here. Hopefully they come out easily and there's no nuts that we need to grab them underneath. Just trying to test if these are going to come out or be a hassle like everything else. Ah. Here we are under the bus. I'm doing these bolts every 100 millimeters. They're fully rusted up, so I've needed to WD-40 every single one. You ready for the next one? Only 125 to go. So there's a bolt every like 100 mil, and these are like 5 meters long. So there's at least 150 just in these long tracks, and the short tracks at the back. And they're all nuts that need to be held from underneath while we unscrew them from the top, because they're not welded in by whichever clown put them in the first place.
The wheelchair tracks unfortunately proved to be significantly more challenging than taking the seats out, much to our dismay. As you can see, again, Lindsay's under the bus, I'm in the bus. Every individual bolt had its own unique challenge, so we had to keep switching up our tools depending on what was the issue with the current bolt. We had to scrape 20 years worth of crust out of the head of them before we could even access them, which that in itself was time consuming somehow. And then you can see that we kind of switch up what we're using. I'm handing Lindsay tools under the bus, he's passing them back up, and we really just had to figure each of the 200 or so bolts out as we went. Just like the chairs, there were some bolts that we could not physically access from beneath the bus, or the tops were too stripped to be able to remove them normally. So again, Lindsay had to get up there and angle grind the remaining ones out. These ones were a little bit tougher though, because you can see how thick the wheelchair tracks are. We actually had to grind into the tracks in order to grind the whole head of the bolt off. So this took longer again than the chairs.
I guess we still need to do this up.
Yeah. We loaded up that bus with everything for the tip, got in to drive and realised we probably can't go to the tip with the bus. And that is correct. So we've spent the last half an hour hiring a trailer and moving everything into a trailer instead. So do your research, people.
Yeah.